Welcome to the Chaos Multiverse, everybody. My name is Jimmy or Chaos, and welcome to the very first Star Wars video on this channel. That's right, and I am a huge Star Wars fan. So as we start to get news on the upcoming Obi-Wan Disney Plus series and the upcoming trilogy live action, expect some videos. Now, Star Wars, it's been in a weird spot recently, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy what's already come out, right? You guys, if you know me, you know I love Star Wars, but I want to do something fun. I want to rank my favorite Star Wars movies, and I think it's time to break my vow of silence. I've never actually done this, so be ready. I'm going to rank every Star Wars movie from the worst to the best. So you let me know what you think of my rankings. Some of you will agree. Some of you won't agree. Drop a like. And at number 12, The Clone Wars, 2008. Now, you thought I forgot about it, but I didn't. You probably didn't expect to see it here, but since it was released in theaters, I'm going to count it with the rest of them. It was released basically as a predecessor to the Clone Wars show that we all know and love, and let me be clear about something. I love the Clone Wars show, but the Clone Wars movie, it was released in 2008, was made on a pathetic budget of only $8.5 million, and it shows. The movie feels like a prototype of the show in every sense of the word. The animation was stiff, it was ugly, the writing was horrible, the story barely made any sense. The show debuted on Cartoon Network a couple months after the movie came out, and they took a lot of the criticism to heart. The Clone Wars TV show is one of the best Star Wars properties ever, but the 2008 movie, not so much. At number 11 today, The Rise of Skywalker, 2019. I don't think this is going to shock a lot of you. It was a complete mess of a movie. It had way too many plot holes, and I can't ignore that. J.J. Abrams really tried to wrap up the Disney trilogy with a bang, but he ended up creating more questions than answers. How did Palpatine survive? Where did the Final Order even come from? If Palpatine created Snoke, why didn't he make more of him? If Palpatine is capable of creating living, breathing Sith, why didn't he just make a whole army of them? I mean, do I even need to talk about the whole Sith Wayfinder thing? Rise of Skywalker had some good visuals, had some nice fan moments, had some good music, but the movie was a mess. It really just made me hate the sequel trilogy even more than I already did. Let's move on. At number 10, The Phantom Menace 1999. Unsurprisingly, I think it was one of the worst prequels. If Darth Maul wasn't in the movie, it would have been dead last. He's the saving grace. The movie had so much potential and it set up so many cool things, but it slipped and fell in the execution, mainly because of the acting. Now, I like the premise, and Liam Neeson gave it his all as Qui-Gon, but the movie itself just wasn't very fun to watch. I mean, the movie sets up a lot of cool stuff for the expanded universe, but these 2 hours plus, it was pretty painful for the most part. The final fight with Darth Maul is one of the best in all of Star Wars. But isn't that what YouTube is for? Go watch the good parts of an otherwise crappy movie? Let's move on. At number 9, Solo 2018. Of all the Disney Star Wars movies, this was probably the least necessary. Yes, Solo did have some cool action scenes, but there were so many problems with it, I just can't call it a good movie. The movie ruins a lot of the mystique of Han Solo as a character, and it over-explains a lot of stuff that really didn't need to be explained in the first place. I mean, a lot of the action was lame. We knew Han and Chewie weren't going to die, so there were no stakes. So why would I be worried about the main characters if I know for a fact they're going to be fine at the end of the movie? Also, why did Darth Maul come back? I mean, I love Darth Maul just as much as the next guy, but they really couldn't think of any cool characters on their own? Some people really like Solo. I can't get behind it. I love Han Solo as a character, and I think this movie did more harm than good. At number 8 today, The Revenge of the Sith 2005. This may be a hot take. I'm not really a fan of it. I will say it was a huge step above The Phantom Menace, and the action scenes are pretty great, but the rest of the movie didn't click. I think Anakin's descent to the dark side was a little rushed. I would have preferred to see a slower, more methodical, more gradual decline, and throughout the movie, we hear about Anakin being a boss and being called to the dark side, but we don't actually see it very often, so when Palpatine finally tempts him over, it wasn't as impactful as it could have been. Like I said, the movie was a huge step over episode 1, and the action scenes were great, but the stuff in between the action could have been better. At number 7, The Last Jedi 2017. I'm pretty sure I'll get some heat for this, but it's my list. It was probably the most divisive Star Wars movie to date, and I can see why. Most people either absolutely hated it or absolutely loved it, so I'm in a weird spot. I'm pretty neutral. I am. It has a lot of stuff that I thought was complete nonsense, but it also has some really nice moments to it that I think don't get enough appreciation. I didn't like how a lot of the original trilogy characters were treated here, and I think there needed to be way more explanation as to how the First Order became so powerful. On the other hand, I did like the dynamic between Kylo and Rey, and there were a few moments with Luke that were really beautiful, like that moment between him and Leia in his reunion with R2-D2. I mean, The Last Jedi was a weird movie to talk about because I'm not 100% on either end of the scale. I'm just going to move on. At number 6, We're halfway home. The Force Awakens 2015. I think most everybody agrees this is the best movie in the sequel trilogy. And a lot of that is really thanks to its carbon copy of New Hope. I mean, come on. I think the movie had great elements. I think Rey's introduction was great. I think the dynamic between Poe and Finn was really good. I also love the idea of Kylo Ren trying to live up to his grandfather's legacy, even if it didn't make a lot of sense because his grandfather was a good guy when he died, but okay. I also don't really understand where the First Order came from again and how that became so powerful, but okay. The Force Awakens had a lot of really good ideas. I just wish it got expanded upon in the future movies. So today in 2021, we know that a lot of this movie's setups never got any payoffs, which that's a shame to me. It had potential. Taken on its own, it was a good movie. It's not amazing, but it didn't get continued very well. And if you just isolate it as a movie, it's enjoyable. It doesn't hold the candle to the originals, but that's okay. At number 5, Attack of the Clones 2002. This is going to get some arguments going in the comments. I'm okay with that. A lot of people write this movie off for being too boring, but I actually argue that the boring parts are the most interesting. Attack of the Clones is basically a movie about Palpatine, and it really shows off how much of a strategic genius he was. The entire movie is about how Palpatine set up the downfall of the Republic and the destruction of the Jedi Order, and I think the arc was fascinating. The action was pretty good too, even if it doesn't happen very often. The fights with Jango Fett and Count Dooku, pretty awesome. Since we're talking about Dooku, I think he's another great character that we should have got more of. He was one of the first Jedi to betray the Order, and the interrogation scene between him and Obi-Wan was awesome. So yes, Attack of the Clones is kind of a boring movie, but if you sit back and listen to the dialogue and let the story play out, it's also one of the most interesting movies in the entire saga. Could have had a little more action, I agree. At number 4, A New Hope 1977. Where it all started. One of the best sci-fi movies ever made. It's absolutely, it just blew people away. It released 45 years ago, guys. The story's great. The characters are great. Universe was fascinating. The effects were groundbreaking. Even if they look a little dated by today's standard, that's okay. The writing, spot on. Some of the best parts of the movie are when things get quiet and we just listen to characters talk to each other and get to know each other and their motivations. A New Hope is a masterpiece. And the only reason it's at number 4 is because I think even higher of the rest of the movies on this list. It's hard. At number 3, Return of the Jedi 1983. Now, a lot of people seem to think low of this movie. I don't understand why. It was a fantastic conclusion to Luke's story as a Jedi, and it's the ultimate redemption arc for Anakin. The Empire was crippled by the events of New Hope, but they were still way too massive to fail just after one loss, so seeing Luke become a Jedi boss was what we were waiting for from the first 2 movies, right? In the final showdown between him and Vader is one of the best fights in Star Wars history. It was definitely more action-oriented, more fast-paced than the rest of the original trilogy, and I think that may be why some people didn't like it, but I loved it. The first 2 movies of the original trilogy were all about setting up the characters in the world, and then the Return of the Jedi was the big final showdown between good and evil. At number 2, Rogue One 2016. Maybe a hot take, I don't know, but I loved it. Not too long ago, there was a trend on Twitter where people were just talking about how much they loved Rogue One, and it made me go back and check it out again. And you know what? It's fantastic. It was the first time we got a Star Wars movie that didn't focus on things like Jedi, Sith, or the Force. We got a much grittier look at the Star Wars universe, and it felt more visceral. It felt more like a war movie. The characters were good. The writing was top-notch. The story was good. The ending, perfect. I do have a few gripes about the CGI on Tarkin and Leia, but honestly, that's my only criticism. This was an almost perfect sci-fi war movie, and if you ask me, it's the second best Star Wars movie ever released, and you probably know it's at number 1 today. At number 1, The Empire Strikes Back 1980. Anybody shocked? It's one of the best movies ever made. Not just Star Wars, not just sci-fi, ever. There's absolutely nothing wrong. It's exciting, it's emotional, it's well written, it flows perfectly. The action is top tier. Most of the special effects still hold up, which shows the power of using practical effects instead of CGI. The Empire Strikes Back is a perfect movie, and it is. It's perfect. You know it's perfect. It's easily the best Star Wars movie ever released, and it's my number 1 pick. You guys give me your list below. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and I'll see you soon.